There we go. All right, we're going to get started in a few minutes, but I just want to welcome everybody. I mean, if you want to put who you are and where you're from in the chat, I see a few people that I know. We have, of course, Villages has our weekly exercise programs. So we also offer our wellness workshops as well, because we really want to have these conversations that matter. So these are things that we really want to be thinking about, information about your healthcare, about way to get more healthcare or better healthcare, contact with people that can help you navigate the system if it works very in a different way. And it's never too early to explore the full spectrum of life options available as we age or we face serious illness. So this is what this series is about. Beverly is joining us from End of Life Options, New Mexico. And we have this session today, April 8th, which is going to be about end of life options that are available in New Mexico. And then on April 22nd, we have another session on advanced healthcare directives, which are available in all states, but all states are different. So if you're coming to us, because we do have many people that come from different states, be sure to check with your own state as far as the forms that are available. And all states have downloadable forms. So we have in our program here today, we'll have URLs where you can find all these forms, but it's easiest either to go to Villages of Santa Fe and click on the blog for this program tomorrow. It'll have those links, or you can go to endoflifeoptionsnewmexico.org and download the forms there as well. So again, we want to welcome everybody, and we're going to get started now. I am Ann Church. I'm founder of Villages of Santa Fe. We have been offering exercise programs for our older population since 2016. In addition to our many weekly exercise programs, we offer wellness and lifestyle workshops. And what we call these conversations that matter. And I think they're really important because we need to have those conversations. Because again, it's never too early to explore the full spectrum of everything, whether it be in the options that we have as we age. If we face serious illness, how do we stay and age in our own home independently? We want to control our future health decisions, and that involves advanced healthcare planning. And it can be completed directive forms, but what we really encourage here is conversation. Second, doesn't really want to. It's really important to have those conversations with your family, your loved ones, your healthcare providers. You can also designate what we call a healthcare agent to help you make decisions on your behalf. And we'll talk about that later. Again, tomorrow we'll have the recording and documents download available at villagesofsantafe.org in our blog. You can access that at any time. So this session explores the full range of end-of-life options, including palliative care, hospice, non-medical aid in dying, and our MAID program here who meet the legal requirements or qualifications. And we're going to go into a deep dive with the key provisions and legal updates and what it means for individual navigating these choices. And again, while these seminars, we're having this one on the 8th, then the other one on the 22nd that focuses on advanced healthcare directive. They're specifically focusing on New Mexico laws, but they're open to anybody regardless location. If you're seeking clarity, information, you're welcome to join us. And again, you can download the forms on our website or End of Life New Mexico options.org, or if on your state as well. Our next session again is going to be April 22nd, hosted myself and Beverly as well. You can register at Villages of Santa Fe. And again, here's the information on our documents and downloads. I'll also put that into the chat later on so you can get it as well. Here's a contact number for End of Life Options New Mexico. You can call them or send them an email as well. So End of Life New Mexico Options New Mexico is presented today by Beverly Gholson. And as you can see, she's an end of life educator with End of Life Options New Mexico. And Beverly, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing?
Certainly. I have been working with End of Life Options New Mexico for about 3 years. And I'm also a certified death midwife, which is like a death doula. It's just a little bit of a different name. And I'm on their advisory board. So I have, and I'm going to go a little bit into how we're organized, and I'll tell you the piece of end of life options that I work with.
Oh, there you go.
So just a little bit of what we are, End of Life Options New Mexico. Our vision is to help provide accurate information and support for people when they're making decisions about what they want their end of life options to be. So basically, we I like to say we don't have a dog in this fight. We don't advocate for any specific options. We were actually formed after the Elizabeth Whitefield medical aid in dying law was passed because we realized that all of a sudden we had this amazing new option and we needed to get people educated about it. So they can't really take advantage of it if they don't know what it is. So that's how our organization became an organization. But we also realized that there are a lot of other options that we wanted to educate people about. So we came together. We're a volunteer organization. I mean, we've got like 3 staff people and it probably 50 volunteers. So we got together and spread out across the state to try to provide education. And we'll do next slide now. And so we're trying to get people to understand their options. We we want to educate the community, the public, and the media. And another group that we have, I'm in the sort of education and outreach group. There's another group that actually is called our client services group, and they sit with patients at the bedside as they're going through some of these options and assist them with that piece of it. So we're kind of divided into those groups. And then we have a very small group that works directly with healthcare professionals to educate them on what the law is and how they can help facilitate this. Next. So let's talk about what you can do now. Hopefully, I'm assuming that you're not at the very end of your life, but you can learn about what the options are. You can create your advanced healthcare directive, which we're going to talk about in 2 weeks. You can create other end of life planning documents. And the most important thing, and I'm going to keep talking about this, is have the conversation. Talk to people. And it's not an easy subject to talk about. I try to talk about it with my family. I had a reunion and I'm like, let me tell you what I want, and the reaction was, well, what do you think about the weather? And it's really not easy, but you sort of have to keep trying. And it's worth it for people to know what you want and what you think is important to you. And I'm going to talk about this a lot more in 2 weeks when we talk about your healthcare directive. But it's never easy to talk about end of life. So we recognize that, we appreciate that, and I want to thank all of you for being here, because just the fact that you're showing up to listen to this means that you're giving it some thought. And that's not even easy to think about it, much less talk about it. So thank you for being here. Next.
I think it's
Yeah.
really important that with this, we're talking about people understanding their own wishes before,
Right.
understand your own position and your own set of values so that you can communicate those in a very positive way, because you're your own advocate, and that's
Right.
what's really important. Yeah.
And in 2 weeks, we actually are going to have a form that's going to help guide you through how to think about it. It has a list of questions, like what's important to you? What do you want? Do you want to be at home? Do you want to be in a facility? Do you want, I might want to be in my own bed with my kitties, but that's the sort of thing that people don't give a lot of thought to sometimes, and we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. You also can talk to your healthcare provider and see if they're going to be advocates for you and if they're going to be supportive of you. And if you don't have somebody that will be, we can help you with that. And again, call our number, go to our website. We know people that do provide those things, and they will be very helpful in getting you what you need to do these things, because there's not a whole lot of people in the state right now that are knowledgeable about that and that will be able to help you with that. But I personally don't know people, but our organization knows people. So that's something, a service that we can offer you. And that's another thing that we're going to talk about hospice later. And that's a question you might want to ask a hospice facility before you sign up with them, if that's something that they would support. Just keep all that stuff in mind. Thanks. Next. So I'm going to talk about, these are generally the options for end of life. So, the first two I'm going to go through very quickly because they're pretty self-evident. The first one is continued treatment, and we sort of refer to that as dying with your boots on. Do everything, give me chemotherapy, give me dialysis, let's do trials. And that's totally fine. If that's what you want to do, again, I don't have a dog in that fight. That's perfectly fine. And then the second one is completely the opposite. We're not doing anything. I'm not doing radiation. I'm not doing any of this stuff. Just let me go. And no problem there. And that's completely your right. You do not have to go through any medical treatment that you don't want to do. And then we're going to also talk about palliative care. And I'm not going to go into it right now a whole lot because we'll talk about it later. We're going to talk about hospice. We're going to talk about, I'm not big on using a lot of shortcuts on language, but there's two that we will talk about. One is VSED, which is voluntary stopping eating and drinking. And the second one is medical aid in dying, which we refer to as MAID. And those are both means of hastening death. And I'll talk about when they're used and how people use them. And so we're going to go through both of those in a lot more detail coming up. Okay, next. So palliative care. And sometimes we call that comfort care. And that's just something to make people feel not in pain, more comfortable. It doesn't mean that you have a 6-month diagnosis. You can still continue doing chemotherapy, radiation, dialysis, any of the other treatments that you want to do. It's just, there's a whole area of care now that's just to try to relieve pain and make people comfortable, and take advantage of it. If you are in pain or you have a serious disease, get palliative care. I mean, they've done huge advances in that field, and take advantage of it. Don't be uncomfortable. Don't be in pain. And it's really wonderful what they're doing with palliative care now. Next.
And Beverly,
Yeah,
is there an age limitation or
Mm-mm.
anything on palliative care?
No, anybody can utilize it that's, qualifies. I mean, you can't just do it because you stub your toe or something. If you have a serious disease that's giving you pain or discomfort, get palliative care. I mean, I would be there in a heartbeat if there was something wrong with me. Make me comfortable, Don't suffer.
I think that's a real cool, I think this is one of these entry level things that people don't have a real strong understanding about, because let's say you are going through chemotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got your oncologist, you've got your doctors and stuff, but who is your advocate?
Right. Right, exactly. And, I mean, even wound care, you can get palliative care. I mean, it just doesn't have to be, that you're on death's door to get palliative care. It focuses on quality of life. And again, as I said, you don't have to have this 6-month diagnosis. And in hospice, which I'll talk about later, you have to have not still be seeking aggressive treatment. That's not true with palliative care. And that's a huge difference between those two. They're not, hospice and palliative care are not linked in that way. I mean, they're linked in that you're going to get palliative care if you're in hospice, but you don't have to be in hospice to get palliative care.
So I've got serious chemotherapy and I've got a lot of issues. I'm continuing with that chemotherapy while I'm getting palliative care. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Great,
You
thanks.
should be getting palliative care while you're getting chemo because knock on a lot of wood, I have never had chemotherapy, but my understanding is it could be pretty rough on your body. And you can have a lot of side effects and a lot of pain or nausea or whatever goes along with that. And you're going to want a whole lot of help there. I mean, I would want a whole lot of help. I'm kind of a sissy when it comes to pain, and like anything I can do to make it better, I'm going to seek it out.
Well, I think this whole point, where as we go through this whole process, we're talking about engaging people that have a lot of knowledge on how to help.
Right. I mean, it's a whole field now, palliative care. I mean, I think, back in the day, people were like, just be tough, but we're not doing that anymore. We're like, no, 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 be comfortable. And so now we're going to talk about hospice. So hospice is amazing, and it's really grown in the past decades. And they provide a whole panoply of support, and it's palliative, it's emotional, it's spiritual, and you have to have a prognosis of 6 months to live. And of course, people don't know. I mean, it's physician's best guess. And you may have picked up a little bit of a Southern accent here. I'm from Georgia, so our favorite son, Jimmy Carter, was in hospice, and they kind of guessed wrong on him. And he ended up keep getting recertified because he kept living, which is a good thing. We're happy about that, but they're not always right, and so it's okay. And I think maybe he ended up living 2 years, which is fine, but they thought it was going to be 6 months when they first put him in it, and that's okay. And why don't you do the next slide? I want to talk about that a little bit. So it's not a place. I mean, people sometimes think that you go to hospice. Well, most frequently, hospice comes to you. You do hospice in your own house, and hospice care comes to you. And they send clinicians, they send volunteers, they send people that can help you. They can relieve your caretaker. If you're lucky enough to have somebody like a family member that's taking care of you, they can sort of spell that person so they can go play bridge or get groceries or whatever they need to do. But everybody that not every most people that are in hospice, their regret is that they didn't start it soon enough, because it can be very comforting, supportive. One of the requirements, though, is that you have decided that you're not going to pursue active treatment. You've said, no more chemo, no more radiation, no more clinical trials. I'm just going to sort of resign myself to the disease that I have playing out, and just sort of live the rest of my life in peace. And I've just heard great things about the hospice facilities, at least those here in New Mexico.
So Beverly, what do you think? And maybe people can chime in on the chat if they like. Why do you think people don't choose hospice earlier?
Not totally sure, but I think, in some cases, they kind of are denying that they're at that stage. They don't want to completely admit, even maybe to themselves, that they're not going to get better, that there's not going to be some miracle that happens that makes them well again. I mean, it would be a hard thing to come to terms with, that, this might actually be the end.
So
Um,
you think
yeah,
it's
go
more
ahead.
for a family member then to bring that up, to say, hey, Dad, I need some, maybe that's the thing. I need help. Maybe we can call hospice, and they can take a look at where you are and see if they can't help. Maybe maybe that's the hard thing. It's a hard thing for the family to chime in on that.
I think it really is. And again, it's that conversation thing, and a lot of us grew up in homes where conversation was not easy. It was more like, what's the weather? And, what are we going to do tomorrow? And what's for dinner? And, those kind of conversations are not always easy to have with, especially people from different generations. And even when they're conversations that are out of love. So it, there's actually a group that's going to be in our references called the Conversation Project, that their whole goal is to help you have those conversations. But I don't think they're easy to have, and I'm not the expert on that either. So
Well, I think also when we look at that, I mean, when we get down to it, we're always concerned, like when with villages, I get calls from members who saying, I need help doing this, I help doing that. I just don't have the funds for it. But hospice is 100% paid for by Medicare.
right,
So I think that that would be one of those things that could really take the burden off the family as well. If they may be at this point paying for things, they may be paying for co-pays and prescription drug deductibles and all of this. And if they go work with hospice, those costs in a lot of cases are 100% cared for or taken care of.
exactly, and frequently it is less expensive than the dying with your boots on option, But again, we're not trying to drive people to give up treatments if that's the choice that they make. But sometimes it just tires people out. I mean, going to dialysis like a whole day thing, and um, maybe it's not going to really help them in the long run. Maybe they're like done with that, and I can totally understand that. It's not probably a comfortable thing to do. I've luckily never done that, but I understand that it's not an easy way to spend the day. So, and hospice provides a lot of stuff. I mean, they they really take care of people. And again, the reports I've heard is that it's really wonderful. And you can just see from when people do end up dying, and they request that people that want to leave a gift, that they donate to hospice. And so to me, that's a testament that how they felt supported by hospice, and that they appreciated the care that they got in hospice. So, to me, that's a very good statement about hospice facilities.
Well, I think also, I mean, sometimes I've had people calling me looking for medical supplies. They don't need hospice at that point, but I can understand if you've got a terminally ill person and you're trying to source medical equipment, it can be quite daunting to find. And this goes off to somebody else who knows the resources, knows the system, because the system is half of it, and it knows the connection. So it can really help with, it can really take a lot of burden off of the caretakers.
Exactly. I mean, finding, portable toilets and walkers and wheelchairs, and, I would have no clue where to look for that stuff. So again, it's the 6 months is the key for hospice qualifications, and the physician must be the person that does that. And again, you can get recertified if luckily you end up outliving the 6 months. You don't have to get what they call a DNR, which is a do not resuscitate order, and that's frequently it's like on a green card, and you put it on your refrigerator or something in case an EMT comes in. But a lot of people do end up having those. So it's just another aspect of it. Sometimes we get questions about DNRs.
But and who qualifies? You just have that you will not receive that aggressive treatment for your disease or any, it's just comfort care and making sure that you have the medications, the equipment and everything that you need.
Right.
Generally,
Catheters,
in your
exactly. So, these are some of the good questions that you might want to ask a hospice before you decided if you wanted to go with one and what you wanted to go with. And again, it's these these are the initials that I'm trying not to use a lot of, but V said voluntary stopping eating and drinking and medical aid and dying. And I'm going to keep talking about this group called Compassionate Choices, which is not a New Mexico group. It's a national group, but they support all of the states that are doing end of life work, and we get a lot of support from them. We use a lot of their materials. They're really great resource, and they're referenced widely on our website. So next, I want to talk about something that's becoming really, really important, and that's what I said. V said voluntary stopping eating and drinking, and this is used by a number of people. One is people, this is a way to hasten death, and it's used by people that don't live in a state that has access to medical aid and dying. So they can't use that to hasten death. Eating and drinking is classified as medical treatment, and you always have the legal right to refuse medical treatment. So you have the legal right in any state to stop eating and drinking. It's not against the law. And it's particularly being used by people that have dementia. So I'm going to talk about aid and dying in the next little section, but people that have dementia can't use aid and dying because aid and dying requires two things: cognitive awareness and a 6-month diagnosis. And people that are familiar with dementia know that those two things do not coincide, because people that have dementia generally lose cognitive awareness before they have 6 months left to live. So it kind of aces those people out of using that. But while they still have cognitive awareness, and if they get dementia, and this frequently happens with people who have like a family history of dementia, and they kind of know that that's going to be coming down the pike, they can say, I just don't want to go to one of those places where you get locked in and, it's a dementia facility. That's just not what I want with my future. And I just don't want to do that. So they can decide that they want to hasten death by stopping eating and drinking. And that's perfectly legal, and people are more and more making that decision. And it has advantages because they can control their means of death. They can say goodbye. They can stay at home, and they don't have to work with a physician to do this, although we actually recommend it because I don't know if any of you have ever been on a diet, but the first couple of days are pretty hard when you stop eating or you eat a whole lot less. And a physician can help you with medications for pain or anxiety. After the first 3 or 4 days, usually, so I've been told, it gets easier. It takes generally from 10 to 14 days to die doing this. And of course, it's not the lack of food that would hasten someone's death, it's the lack of drinking. So it's actually the dehydration that does it. So we have there's a lot of information out there about how to do this. There's tips, like if you're caretaking for somebody that's doing this, don't like have a lot of cooking smells around the person, make it easier for them. And again, after the first 3 or 4 days, it becomes a lot easier. And if you work with a physician, they can provide medications that's almost like sedative medications where the person's going to be calm and there's not going to be a lot of anxiety. Um, it's, I mean, I've actually, I'm going to say knew people that did this, and it was not as hard as it sounds like it might be for them. And they got the desired result, which was a peaceful death. So it's not for everybody, but especially people with dementia, it's going to be the only thing they can do to hasten death. I mean, well, obviously it's not the only thing they can do, but it's one of the more peaceful things that they can do. And it is not considered suicide, which might help as far as insurance is concerned. And it's less probably rough on the family if it's not a violent death. This is something, though, that you really, really want to talk to your family about so that they understand what you're doing and they understand why you're doing this. There's some really good resources on this on our website. We have a whole section that's a library section. And there's a book that I particularly like called the VSET Handbook that gives a whole story written by a woman whose mother did this. And it's like less than 100 pages. It's a really easy read, but it's really a good description of how this works and her whole firsthand experiences. And she went through the whole process and her whole family agreed, and then her sister disagreed, and she called the police, and the police came because they said it was elder abuse because they weren't feeding her mom. And the police interviewed the mom, and the mom said, "Oh, this is great. This is what I want. I don't want to go in, one of these dementia facilities. I don't want to die the way I saw my mom die." And so the police were satisfied and they left. But you really, really, it's good to talk to your family about it so that they totally understand it. So just, something to think about. We have, like I said, we have a lot of resources on our website about it, and you can get a lot more understanding if it's something that you think you might want to do or a loved one might want to do. So now I want to get to medical aid in dying, which is legal in New Mexico. It's also legal in 10 states and the District of Columbia. So there are 11 places where you can do it legally. And if you meet certain criteria, which I'll talk about a little bit, you can take a prescription which will hasten your death. You want to go to the next one, which is sort of, there's a couple of criteria that you have to meet. They have to be mentally competent, terminally ill, and they have to self-administer the medication, which are kind of the three key things. And we've had it here since June of 2021, and it's estimated that over 800 people have taken advantage of this option since the law passed.
But also then, Beverly, like you said, this is an option that anybody can, if you meet this criteria, you can request and have in reserve. But I know that
you can have,
it's not final till it's final.
exactly.
It's always an opt-out situation, all right? Yeah.
Right, yes. I mean, obviously, having the medication, it's not required that you take it because you self-administer it.
Right.
Yeah, and if you don't administer it, you don't have, I mean, you haven't taken it. Exactly. So these are the states. This map shows the states where it's passed. And interestingly enough, it hasn't passed anywhere since 2021, which it gets introduced in the legislation of states, but it hasn't passed in the last 4 years anywhere. So the criteria here in our state, New Mexico, is you have to be a New Mexico resident. And I like to say that we have the best law of any state in the country because we're the smartest, which I do think we're smart. But we also, since we're the most recent, we learned from other states. And a lot of other states wish they had done things differently, and we paid attention to that. And so we did things differently when we passed our law. There are a few states that have done away with the residency requirement, and we sort of have, but not really. That's a very low bar, a New Mexico resident. We only ask one question. Do you plan to stay here until you die? So we don't ask for a mortgage or a lease or a power bill. We just ask that one question. So if you have a family member or a loved one in another state and they want to use medical aid in dying, they can come here and someone will say, do you plan to stay here till you die? And if they say yes, which theoretically would not be very long, they're eligible for it. Now, what's really, really important is they can't get the medication here and go back to another state, because we have protection in this state that it's not suicide if you use medical aid in dying. If they go back to another state, they don't have that protection. And I'm going to kind of hammer this a little bit. If they go back to, say, Texas, then the person that drove them there or helped them with the medication can be guilty of assisting suicide, which is a felony. And people have been prosecuted for that. So don't do it. If they come here and say they're a resident and they're going to be here till they die, they need to stay here until they take the medication so they don't get arrested for committing a felony. Super important. So the residency requirement, they have to be 18 years or older, which is what we call an adult. They have to have been diagnosed with 6 months or less to live, again, best guess by a physician. They have to voluntarily make the request. They have to be able to self-administer the medication, which I'll talk about a little bit more. And they have to be cognitively aware. They have to be able to make the decision themselves. Next. So this is one of the things that we really learned from other states. After they get the prescription, it can't be filled for 48 hours. Some of the earlier states, there was a 2-week waiting period, which people didn't always live 2 weeks. So that was the problem. We're like, okay, we're not going to do 2 weeks. We're going to do 48 hours. And other states have gone back and revised their standards, so they only have to wait 48 hours. So that was one of the really good things we did. Some states had to have 2 physicians sign it. Well, I don't know about you, but sometimes it's hard to even find a doctor here, much less 2 doctors. And we're such a rural state that can be a problem. So we changed, we didn't change it. We enacted our legislation to say an MD, and it can be a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant. So just 2 medical people. And if they're already in hospice, that counts as one of the physicians. So, and in some states, they have to make 2 requests. Here, they only have to do 1. So we're trying to really make it easier, again, based on learning from other states that, Oregon's had it for over 20 years. So, there are people that were way ahead of us. Okay, next.
Really,
Yeah.
There's a waiting period for the prescription, but then there's also just starting the process. You start the process. Let's say I call End of Life Options New Mexico. So it's going to take a bit of, you have to get a doctor engaged with this. You have to do this. So there's a lead time involved in that. So what kind of lead times are you talking about there?
It can be very quick. We know doctors that do this. We have doctors that can do this very quickly. It can be a matter of days.
But you can also, if you, let's say you are entering hospice, you could also go ahead and say, let's get this process started. So later on, when I'm not in the same shape that I am now, that I've already got this information done and it's all in place. So it doesn't really, it's really that 6-month issue. I could do it at day 1 of 6 months, or I could maybe do it at day whatever, close to the end, but it might be easier to have the conversation with the family. And, if you've already discussed this with them, had that decision, they know what's coming on, and then, they have some time to settle in with it.
It's completely your decision. That's the whole choice thing. That's the whole option thing, is absolutely, again, have the conversation. And that's the beauty of this, is that, you get to pick the time of your death. It's your choice. And but you can do it very quickly here. I mean, we don't have to wait the 2 weeks. We don't have to, as I would say, dink around with this thing. You can do it very quickly. And there's only 3 pharmacies in the state that do this. It's a compounded, um, it varies, but right now it's 5 things that they compound and they Federal Express it. So it all can go very quickly once you get the ball rolling. Um, could you go to the next slide? I want to talk about something on that. They have to have cognitive awareness. And so that can be a little bit of a holdup if one of the people says, I'm not sure this person has enough cognitive ability to make this decision, then they can refer them to a mental health professional who would make that decision. And that's where you get the people that are starting to maybe get into dementia, cognitive decline. So that can be that's where you don't want to wait to get, well, and if you were having dementia, you wouldn't get to the 6 months with cognitive awareness anyway. So, but that's a key thing. One thing I really want to focus on though too is it's not suicide. It's not assisted suicide. And the reason it's not is because the law says it is not suicide. And so that's super important because if you're there, helping to you mix it up into like 2 ounces of apple cider. So you can very easily ingest it. It has to go through your digestive system. It's not in an IV because, most people can't self-administer an IV. It's not euthanasia. Euthanasia is what our vets do. We love our vets. We love euthanasia. Thank goodness we've got vets that can do euthanasia, but this is not euthanasia. It really makes me mad when I keep reading these articles about physician-assisted suicide. It's not assisted suicide. Those physicians would be guilty of a felony if it were. It's not. It's not mercy killing. It's not homicide. It's not adult abuse. So I can tell you all the things it's not. It's aid in dying, but it's completely performed by the patient. They administer it themselves. They drink the medication. If there's some medical conditions where they have difficulty drinking, and so it can be taken rectally, and but they have to like push the plunger or make a very defined attempt to push the plunger. And I mean, we've even had cases where we put Velcro gloves on people and Velcro on the cup and everything. And it's mostly just to be sure that they're doing it themselves. It's their intention, and our critics are like, you're killing off all the old people. You're killing off all the disabled people. It's like, no, they're doing it themselves. It's their intention. It's their administration of the medication. So that's a super important aspect of it, is that it's self-administered.
So we have a question, if looking for MAID, if you enter hospice in Florida and then get another MD and Peter sign off on 6 months, can you move to New Mexico to get the medication and die? I think it goes back to that question. Anybody, if they feel they only have 6 months to live, can travel to New Mexico as long as their intent is to die here. Is that correct? And then go through the process.
Do you plan to live here for the rest of your life? That's our question. Yeah, and that answer, if the answer is yes, then they just have to stay here for the rest of their life. And I think it's very reasonable and it's very practical. And it's a choice of the person that's potentially going to ingest it, but it's also a choice of medical providers. I mean, medical providers are not required to prescribe it. I mean, everybody's got a choice. Everybody's got a choice. And we also have, we don't have it. There is a telephone line where doctors can get consults and information about aid and dying. And so that's available as well.
So there was another question. Do you have to be cognitive about your decision on the date you choose to die, or you can decide as soon as you go into hospice? And so I guess we're saying you receive the drugs, you have the drugs there. Is somebody
Right.
checking on the date that you take the drugs that you're cognitive?
You should be, yes. A physician does not have to be in the room with you when you do it. So theoretically, you haven't lost cognition between the date that you request it and the date that you take it. So yeah, you should still have cognitive ability when you ingest the medication. But again, about a third of the people that get the medication don't take it. They just change their mind about ingesting it. And again, their choice. I mean, it's really dangerous. It comes in a locked box, I mean, so you don't want to like leave it around for toddlers to get into it or anything. You need to be super, super careful with it because it's obviously very dangerous medication.
But I had a very good friend whose mother was diagnosed with ALS, and it was, of course, that is not a a it's a brutal disease. And so she moved here to New Mexico for, her last, it turned out to be 8 months, but that was fine.
Yeah. So, again, I mentioned this earlier that you might want to speak with your medical provider now to see if they would support it, but it's hard to find somebody that will. I mean, I personally haven't found anybody that will, but if I did want to use it, I would call our organization and get one of the doctors that we know will support it to work with me on that option. So it's not the end of the world if you can't find somebody now that'll do it. So, contact us and we'll help you because we know people. I mean, I don't, but our organization knows people. There is a form that you fill out that when you want to do that, and we have it on our website, but you don't need to have that until the end. Okay, next. And I mentioned that there's no exact formula, and there's a whole group of clinicians that get together and discuss all this stuff, and they're always tweaking it about which is the best combination of things, and it changes periodically as to what's the best thing. And I mentioned that it has to be ingested, but there are various ways to ingest it, and you ingest it within 2 minutes. You ingest it pretty quickly, and usually people fall asleep first, and then within about an hour, death occurs. So it's pretty quick. It's not like a long drawn out thing. Next. So are there any questions that people have that I haven't addressed? Is there anything in the chat that I need to address?
Beverly, this is
Yeah.
Julie. I just wanted to make everyone aware that last night I'd seen it on somewhere online that they're on YouTube. There's actually a made reenactment. I think it was done by EOLO during the Before I Die Festival last year. And if you Google Gail, it's Rubin, Gail Rubin. It's the reenactment of an actual made situation. And it's amazing as far as to see how it actually comes together. The meeting with the EOLO staff or volunteers, and then a PA comes in and meets with the patient, and then they show the actual day, and it's so peaceful and so reassuring, and it's on the patient's terms, and it's just a really good video I thought to watch and actually kind of see how the whole process comes together and how the patients, families can be there. Some choose to stay in the room, some choose to leave the room, whatever they're most comfortable with. But it's a great resource for anybody looking to do this. And there are several online once you start looking, but this one was done by your group, and I found it very enlightening.
Can you put that information in the chat? That would be
Sure,
great.
I'll be glad to.
Thanks, Julie. And the Before I Die Festival is in Albuquerque, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
new to the
something
area,
that,
so I'm not sure, yes. But I
yeah,
know
I think it is. It's a kind of a big deal. They they have a whole lot of talks and tabling, and I haven't actually been to it, I have to say. But I think it's kind of a big event that they have in Albuquerque with a lot of resources, and it sounds like it would be really a valuable resource to go to that. That's, yeah. And the thing about doing that is you can have, music, candles, your family there. It can, you can really set the scene for how you want this to happen. And,
Mm.
Again, it's the whole death with dignity, a good death. It's just, you get a lot of control over things, it's your choice.
Yep.
Thanks, Julia.
So we want to encourage you to join us April 22nd. This will be an online. We also have had some interest in people. If you are interested with this fall, we are possibly going to have some in-person advanced healthcare directive program where we would actually have the forms for you to fill out and be able to chat with people individually. If you're interested in that, we can certainly keep you on the list, or you can let us know that you're interested. Again, our next session is April 22nd at 11 a.m. This one obviously relates to New Mexico, but every state has advanced healthcare directives that you can download. They're going to be very similar. Every state's going to ask a little questions a little bit differently, but we're really happy that you've joined us today. And we also have a fall prevention program on May 13th. I'm going backwards in time. So join us with that. And Beverly, we want to thank you so much. And we really appreciate End of Life Options New Mexico, the hard work it took to get this bill passed to make our older population have options. That's really important in our life, and being supportive of that. Thank you so much. Let's stop share. There we go. So thank you all for attending, and hope to see you in 2 weeks. And have a nice day.